right now.
And we should be live right now, my friend. Good to see you, buddy.
How you doing, Pepper?
I am amazing. Just trying to make sure I get all the technology here. My wife always laughs when I play around with all this stuff to get started. But you know what? She's going to laugh at me one way or another. So
That's
we are
right.
live and ready to rock and roll. Now, if you guys are out there listening to this in real time, please do me a favor and say hello. Ask us questions, whatever it is that you need to want to talk about. I know a lot of you guys have been asking about the 5 rules, laws of money. We have a bonus one, obviously, that's the 6th one. But please make sure that you keep asking those questions. Say hello in the chat box. I see Core and I see my wife on there. So good to see you guys. I'm going to switch accounts here so I can answer in on my Facebook account rather than my wife. Last time I was answering on the Facebook account of my wife, and I think everybody thought it was her. So Sam, what do you got to talk about tonight on the Wealth Debate?
Well, we're going to talk about the rules. I was going to take a poll to see, what rule you'd like to talk about. We could spend some time on that, 1 or 2 tonight. We can continue to talk about those. I think they're important, obviously. In the news, if you've been watching the markets, GameStop just lost and collapsed. It's not completely collapsed to where it was, which was, $20 not too long ago, and went all the way up, shot up hundreds of dollars on a short squeeze. If you don't know what a short squeeze is, it's when a lot of people are betting on a stock to go down, so they sell the stock without owning it. And basically, you're just saying, I think it's going to go lower. But what happens is, if the buyers keep buying and pushing the price up, the people that are short can't take the pain anymore, so they become buyers. And then you have the people that were short become buyers to get out of their position. You got the buyers buying, and this creates a huge amount of momentum, which creates a squeeze on the short sellers, and the full momentum of both the sellers and the buyers buying for different reasons, right? The buyers buying for the price to go up, and the sellers buying just to get out. Excuse me. It creates a massive amount of buying rapidly. This is what creates the stock shooting up. Now, of course, the stock shot up and hit ridiculous highs, was up hundreds of percentages in the matter of a week, and then they pulled the rug out, and the people that were long, which usually is the public, unfortunately, we call the sheep, because they follow when it's too late, and they get trampled because the stock collapsed. So this is another reason I think that net worth is a ridiculous sounds too severe, doesn't it, Pep?
Yeah, it's not a good measure of somebody's wealth.
Yeah, because people who own that share were they were worth a lot more than they were before it collapsed. If you bought the stock at 20 and you sold it at 400, that's a massive amount of profit. Unfortunately, most people, they saw it at it was over 400. People were like, "Oh, I can't sell it now. It's at 300. I can't sell it now. It's worth over 400. And it's at 200. I can't sell it now because it's worth over 400." It broke down. I think the low today was 75, 74 bucks. So it bounced though. I don't know exactly where it closed, but the scary thing is that the idea of the value of your money losing and gaining that quickly is there's something wrong, right? Because the company itself wasn't making any money. It's not like they were making loads amount of more money. So they made some partnership with somebody. None of that happened. This was a short squeeze. AMC, which is the movie theaters, same thing happened to them. That thing was floating around $2, $3, $4 for the longest time because of COVID. And it exploded to near $20, and I think today it was back around $7, maybe $8. And this happened in the span of 5-10 days, trading days, so like 2 weeks. So things like this, trying to capture wealth like this, and this is something that we say and we believe real wealth takes real time. So if you don't put in the time and the effort and it comes easy like that, it can go just as fast. And that's a great example for GameStop and AMC. Just checking what AMC and GameStop closed today to express this point.
Let's talk about that for a second. Why those two stocks? Because everybody thought that both companies are dead. They planned on it going down, and that's what happened. I mean, AMC because of streaming services and COVID, GameStop because, quite frankly, it's maybe a little bit outdated in its product offering.
Right.
And so it's kind of like Blockbuster Video. How long is it going to really be around? It could be around for a while, but is it really worth hundreds of dollars per share on the stock? And the answer, of course, is no.
Right.
And Warren Buffett, I like to use this analogy. Warren Buffett made the comment back in the late 2000s, so over 20 years ago now. It's hard to believe it was that long ago. But at that time, it was always Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, who was the richest person in the world, according to net worth that Sam likes to talk about. Who was the richest person? And at that time, Warren Buffett was one or two all the time. And late 90s, when all the tech bubble, the .com stuff started to come in, he wasn't investing in it. And people thought, oh, the Oracle of Omaha, he's done. He's lost his mojo or whatever they want to say about him. They said, oh my gosh, he's washed up. And he basically said, and this is something that we talk about with real estate, he basically said there's no price to earnings ratio that makes any sense there. They're not worth what they're selling for.
That's right.
And what that basically means is cash flow. And would you buy a property that was let's say $2 million that you could get $1,000 a month rent on? You wouldn't. And if you did, you'd be crazy because the price to earnings, the price is here, the earnings here, doesn't make any sense. He was talking about that with stocks. Now, the average person doesn't even know what that even means. But I think with real estate, we all understand it. You're not going to buy a property that's $2 million that only makes $1,000 a month in rent because if you have any sense whatsoever, your payment on that mortgage is going to be exponentially more. And even if you paid the thing off and you bought it cash, you'd be making $12,000 a year on your $2 million investment. That would be chump change. That would be a terrible investment. And so this is why we always look at cash flow. I look at GameStop. I look at AMC. And I truly believe both companies are going to get really hurt after the whole pandemic is done. And so this is just funny money. It's made up stuff. Yeah. What happens? Go ahead, Sam. I know you want to talk.
Yeah. No, it's exactly what you're saying, Pip. It's ridiculous. I was just looking up GameStop. So the 52-week low and high of GameStop, 257 was the low. So in the last year it was 257, and on January 28th, which was a week ago, $483 went up to $483, and it closed, I believe, at $98. I can double check the close. I was just looking at AMC. So AMC's 52-week high. Let's look at that. So AMC's 52-week high.
Can you spell that one? Can you spell that?
AMC, yeah.
I didn't know you could spell that one. I didn't know.
So AMC was $191. That was on. This is the 52-week high. On the low, 52-week low was January 5th, 21. The 52-week high was January 27th, 21.
And how much was the 52-week high?
$20.36.
So it went up 20 times.
Yeah, 10 times, about 10 times. Yeah, a little more than actually 10 times. And today it closed at $8.97 in pre-market. Post-market, it's $8.60. So, it's not real. And this is the thing. I mean, you can't trap wealth. Where'd that money go? Where'd it go? It's gone. It's deceased. It no longer exists. When we have what happens in the stock market, when you see the stock market rise, and this is for real estate and business, and it doesn't really matter what the asset class is. So when you see the stock market rise, there's only one way that it rises, only one, and that's new money comes into the market. There has to be someone who comes in, or groups of people that come in, willing to pay more than whatever the price of the stock was. That's how the market goes up. If you see the market go down, money's left the market. It's left. It's no longer there. It's the only way it goes down is the money's left the market. Now, a stock could go down and the market could stay stable. That means that the money moved from here, the stock that went down, to something else. And that's offset it, and the market is stable. The same amount of money, relatively the same amount of money is in the market. Excuse me. Wow. This is a very important point I want to share with you. I'm sharing with you is the only way, keep this in mind, the only way real estate markets go up, the only way is new money comes in. This is the only way. New money has to come in, okay, for the market to go up, because someone's got to be willing to pay more, right? So that's new money, right? If somebody's buying it for the same exact price of the value of the current value, the market just stays stable. Someone has to say, I'll pay more for that, okay? So stock market, real estate markets go up because of money flow. This is very important. Money flow. So it's either flowing in or it's flowing out. So when money flows into the real estate market, it goes up. When money flows out, it goes down. This is important because it gives you an inside understanding, a comprehension of, recognizing that net worth is an illusion. There's no net worth. That house is, and I hate to say this to people, but because they get upset. Your house is worth nothing, zero. Its intrinsic value is zero, and it will go back to zero. You can count on it. It'll go back to zero. It's just amount of time it'll take to go back to zero. Your house itself, all right, has no value that it can't hit. It can go, a house can be negative value. And Pep talks about his story about his brother who bought a house, bought a house, was given a house. I know guys, guys that had property, went up to people who had property where they were like, you got to pay me to take this. You got to pay me to take negative value. This idea that, buy land, God's not making any more of it. Ever been in a plane over the United States or Canada? Nothing but empty space. Right? We got tons of empty space in the United States and Canada. I think in Canada, we're using about 2% of the land, total land, usable and unusable, but 2%. In the US, I think it's 3%. I mean, it's tiny, and they have obviously 300 million plus people. So this is important because you don't want to be seduced by, oh, it's actually worth this much. There's some sort of intrinsic value in it. That's a seduction. You don't want to get caught in that trap, the net worth trap. So when you see property values go up, you have to ask yourself, where's that money come from? And the two primary places that money comes from is foreign investment and new jobs, right? That's what causes, that's new money into a community, prices go up, right? And when prices go down, like in Detroit, prices go down, collapse, really, of the housing market, it's because money left. And that was an actual mass migration of the people who live there left. So if they leave and they're earners, right? And that's why people leave, is so they can earn. They can't earn anymore. That's a big reason. They migrate to another state or another place. So that money left, never to come back. I mean, there's money flowing back into Detroit, but I don't know, Pip, you checked lately? Last I checked, it was like 90,000 abandoned homes, like just empty, vacant homes. So there's a serious problem. Those houses at one time were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now they're worth tens of thousands of dollars, right? I mean, really, some of them you could argue have negative yield, negative value. Certainly have negative yield. They're negative value. So when you see a stock go flying up, or you see real estate market in a particular area, shoot up, be wary. Ask yourself the question, where's that money coming from? And how long will it last? The belief that the market is going to stay where it is. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of talk about inflation in the economy. This is not a real concern. I'll tell you what the real concern is. It's deflation. Deflation. Now think about this. Me and Pip were just talking about this today. The mortgage rates, right? For a mortgage right now, in Canada, you can get like a 1.65 for 5 years. Pip was telling me today, you can get a 1.95, right, Pip?
You can get a 15-year for 1.9,
And I just looked this up before we got on here. In a 30-year for 2.25.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So let me ask you a question. If you own $1 million house and your mortgage rate is 1.65, and over the next 10 years even, it goes up to 2.65, 1 point. Where are you going to find the money to pay that mortgage payment when you renew? Where's it going to happen? Now in the U.S., it's not as big a problem because they don't have ARMs, rate adjustable mortgage. They don't have those, right? So theirs is fixed for 30 years. In Canada, though, if you renew 5 years later and your mortgage rate's moved a point, you don't have an extra $1,000 a month. No one put the $1,000 extra a month just in case the mortgage rates move. So what's the government going to do to sustain those real estate prices? Well, guess what? They're going to do funny money stuff. They're going to do, play games. They're going to continue to drop the interest rates. They're going to extend amortization. They're going to tell people you don't need anything to buy a house. Guess who's done all this and continues to do it because they're stuck in it? Japan. So Japan has negative interest rates. Japan has 100-year mortgages. Japan basically you can get in for virtually nothing, right? They're giving money away. People don't want it. So once you travel on this path, it's extremely difficult if you want a stable economy or try to stabilize your economy to increase your interest rates. This is going to be a serious problem. Now, it's not impossible. And there's been cases where we saw rates go low. Actually, just recently, we saw the rates go really low, virtually zero. The bank rate, from the Fed, in the crash, and slowly they came up, but they really didn't recover anywhere near pre-2008, crash times. We're talking like rates, pre that, you're talking anywhere from 4, 5, 6%. I can't even imagine. Can you imagine mortgage rates at 6%? Can you even imagine what would have to happen to get mortgage rates at 6%? Inflation has to be what, 3, 4%? I mean, there's no inflation right now. There's no inflation, right? Not because inflation is caused by two things. An influx of capital creates inflation. So new jobs actually in an economy, in an area, will create inflation. That's new money. Foreign investment will create inflation. This is why prices rise rapidly, because of inflation. So those things can create it. Right now, though, the GDP of the United States and Canada, most parts of the world, is it's extremely low, thin, negative, really year over year. You could argue that, it's decimated in some areas. So we're not producing anything. And the money that's coming in is coming from the government with subsidies and programs. That's really to cover, the money that would have been made from the production, the GDP, us actually producing goods and services. So I don't see a very exciting prospects for real growth in and around the world. I would expect to continue to see interest rates lowered, mortgage amortization extended, and less needed for someone to buy a house, because it's going to be that. Otherwise, the prices are going to fall rapidly in real estate and the stock market. It will fall very, very fast, and they don't want that. So I don't want that. We don't want that, right? So what does that say for you? What should you be looking for in the way of strategies and approaches to it? I would look at short-term strategies. So a short-term strategy is flipping properties. A short-term strategy is rent to own, is a short-term strategy, right? There's a beginning, middle, and an end in a short period. You can do buy and hold properties. You can buy stock long-term, but the risk is relatively large. If you're not producing a dividend or you're not producing some kind of return, it can be extremely expensive and lost opportunity if you decide to hold on to these assets. This is what it is. It's a new economy. The economy has been new. It's funny to call it new because it's been changing for 2 decades, really shifting from brick and mortar to online and virtual environments. We see that and feel that right now with COVID. So I think we need to recognize a couple of things. We need to recognize the laws of wealth. It doesn't matter. This is why they're laws. It doesn't matter what's going on. These laws apply. And if you follow these laws, you're going to get where you want to go a lot easier than trying to fight the laws. Yeah.
Core wants to know what you mean by what is short in short term.
So short would be flipping a house would be short. So I'm buying
less than a year. Yeah,
less than a year in that case, but you could do a rent to own in this environment. For sure you could. The reason rent to owns rock, the way we approach them is there's a set agreement on what the value of the property will be in 1, 2, 3 years or 5 years. That's what makes that work. So even if it goes 5 years, the economy turns, there's a set price in there. So the risk is really taken away if the market goes down, because there's a set price in the agreement. The other one is wholesale, right? So you want to avoid long-term ownership. And in our case, Pip would say control, long-term control of these assets. If they're not producing money, they're liabilities. So it's not good enough to just own things or have property, or we make the joke that just because you have no money in a property, it doesn't make it a good property. It's still got to produce something. It's still got to make something. So you want to make sure that you're producing income from your assets from day one. The only one that you're not looking at making money from day one of the group that we talk about is rehab. Rehab is a negative yielding, negative cash flow position because you're buying it. And that's okay that you can have a negative, because the negative is the losses offset by the profits that you'll make in a short term, right? 30, 60, 90 days. You start holding that property for a year, you can create some serious problems. Now, again, all of these are rooted back to these laws. All of these are rooted back to these laws, recognizing, we don't really want to own anything because you can't trap wealth. If you can't trap wealth, why would you want to own anything? Why would you want to take the risk of ownership? You know what money's good for? I'll tell you what money's good for. The biggest value of money as an investor is to ask yourself, how much debt can I buy with this money? How much debt can I buy with this money? What does that mean? When we apply it to real estate, it means if I have $10,000, how much debt can I buy? How big of a mortgage can I get on this property? What's the size of the property I can get? So, Pip's been teaching for not 2 decades now, but he's getting up there. He's getting up there.
Real close.
Yeah, he's still a young man, buddy. So if I have $10,000, can I buy $90,000 worth of debt? That's why the $10,000 is valuable, not because of money just buying things. The real value is how much debt can I buy? Why? Because the more debt, proper deliberate debt that I buy, the more income I'm going to make, right? That's why we love debt. Debt exponentially grows your income, and your ability to acquire more and more income streams. So we absolutely want deliberate debt. We absolutely want as much debt as possible. That makes sense, obviously. But we want debt. Debt is a shield for you. And this is, we talk about the laws, and that's one of the laws, access to debt. To grow an economy, you need access to debt. You need, excuse me, you need modern systems that allow people to free capital, say in a house, get a loan or a line of credit and use that capital so it's not trapped, in a suspended state there. And we already know if we leave the money in the house, what's going to happen? It's going to deteriorate over time. The longer you hold the house, the less likely you're going to make money on appreciation. And for those of you, and you should do this, right? And again, I'm sure we've said this, Pip. If we haven't, we should say it every show. Don't just believe what we're telling you. Don't just take what we're telling you because it sounds good. Don't do that. Apply it, see it, experience it. If you can't see and experience it, come back and talk to us. We'll help you. We will. But if you can't apply and experience this in your own environment, your own life, then you should question it. We're not telling you just to take this. We're telling you we know these things because we didn't discover it. We recognized it. This is above me and you, these rules. These laws are above me and you. They exist, they'll exist after I'm gone, and they existed before I came. This is why they're so powerful when you apply them. So what I want you to do, those of you, is 2 exercises with your properties. Okay. 1, check to see what the actual appreciation is over time on your property. It's good to try a property that you've owned for 20 years, right? Nice 20, 25 years, a generation, and see what the actual, appreciation is over time, gross appreciation. Then take away taxes, maintenance, insurance, and inflation. You'll find out it's not as big a number as you believe it is. Even though the whole number looks big, I bought it for 100 and it's worth 500,000. You think that's amazing, but think about it. If it's moving at 6%, 6%, just 6%, which isn't massive, but it's still 6%. It's a gross number, no expenses in there. It's going to take me how many years? 6 into 72 is 12 years. So 12 years, every 12 years, what's going to happen? Every 12 years, my property is going to double. So 100 becomes, in 12 years, how much? 200. And in another 12 years, which is 24 years, it should be 400,000. So you think, whoa, wow, $100,000 house is now worth 400. Wow, don't I feel rich? Well, hold on. What happened during those 24 years, 25 years? What happened? Well, there was inflation. I had to pay taxes. I had to maintain the property. I had to pay insurance. These things cost. That's the price of ownership. So we say this, and we say this with love and respect. Ownership is for suckers. It's for suckers. If you're pursuing it for net worth or building wealth, it's for suckers. I'm not saying don't own your house. We'll never tell you never own your house. That's not what we're talking about. But if you wake up every morning and you go, gee, I love my asset, you're in trouble, because you don't recognize the difference between an asset and a liability. How are you going to build wealth if you don't even know there's a game or the rules of the game, how to play the game? This is what we lived through. We didn't know how to play the game, and then we were hurting our families in inches, thinking we were doing the right thing. So it's important for us to understand money in a way that we're not anxious about it, that we're not frustrated about it, that we're not thinking about it all the time. Somebody wiser than me said, count your money once a month. You won't count it anymore. If you don't count it once a month, you'll count it every day. Listen to that for a second. Count your money once a month. You'll never count it again. Count it, and don't count it once a month. You'll count it every single day. So every time you make a purchase, you'll be thinking, can I afford this? Should I be buying this? Because you don't know where you are. You don't know what your financial position is, right? You're thinking, do I have enough? Do I need to make more? You get anxiety. There's arguments or discussions over money. You don't want to talk about it. You avoid it. So you overplay your hand. You spend like it's coming out of the sky, right? Or you don't spend at all because you're anxious and you feel poor. And this is caused by an ignorance of us facing and understanding money to the point where we recognize it's okay to count your money. It's okay to budget just once a month. You want release once a month, and you won't be counting that the rest of the month. You won't, because you know exactly where I am. We want you to take these rules, apply them in your everyday life, because you're making decisions when you apply these rules. When you say, I can't trap wealth, I'm not going to own anything, you make decisions like, I'm going to rent instead of own. I'm going to rent a house instead of own a house. I'm going to rent a car, maybe for a short period, instead of even own one. I'm in a business where we use trucks. And I'm telling you, I would rather rent a truck any day of the week than own one. I would rather rent a truck than own it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Without question. This rule applies when you do the math to everything. Everything. It applies to everything. So if you know net worth is not something you want to pursue, you start pursuing income. You start pursuing, cash flow, multiple streams of income. You get away from this idea, I'm going to buy a house, pay it off as quickly as possible, which, let's be honest, the best loan you'll ever get in your life is a mortgage. 1.65, that's free money. 1.959. That's free money. That's free money. They're giving you free money. Why is it free? Because inflation is going to wipe out that percentage. It's going to wipe it out. It's going to wipe it out. So you want to take these things and you want to prime. Yeah, Pep?
So I got a question.
Sure.
So the question is, I'd love you to go. Well, first of all, Adam Barr asked a question. Haven't seen him on here in a while, so I know Sam.
Adam.
Yeah. And he asked a question about lease option. What if the tenant buyer doesn't want to buy it if the property value goes down? And I said to Adam in the chat, the tenant buyer has the option, not the obligation. And if you told him it was going to be 200,000 and it's now worth 180, he's probably not going to want to buy it at 200 if it's only worth 180. They have the option, not the obligation. They would then move on to a different property and the property's still back to you. So that would be what would happen in that instance. Wendy asked a question. I would love you to go deeper into explaining this, why not to own your home, maybe compare, and she's giving you an example here, maybe to compare what your home is worth when purchased at 100K and what it is after 25 years versus making money on that 100K amount.
Okay, so if we take a property and so first thing we got to recognize that in a normal market, the rent is always going to be less costly than ownership. That's the first thing you got to know. You got to know that. In a frenzied market, like a hot market, it's even more pronounced by far. Okay, so the only time we see rent exceed the cost of ownership is in a down market. That's the only time. So in other words, house prices are down here. The rent covers the price of the mortgage, the interest, the price of ownership, basically, right? Maintenance, insurance, taxes, inflation. It covers that. But because that state happens from time to time, when the market comes down, it crashes. Because that happens, what happens is the investors come in, start buying up the houses, and they make it negatively cash flow. It's just natural, right? Everybody flocks to where the money is. So everybody rushes in, starts buying it up, and it goes up. So renting is less expensive than ownership, right? Renting is less expensive. So this is a main thing you want to recognize. If you can't get past that, you should do the math. We'd have to do the math to make sure you understand that. Because if you don't, then obviously you should own a house. Yeah, but think about it. If a guy could rent and it covers the cost of everything plus, why wouldn't he buy? Like, why wouldn't he buy? It'd be easy. He's obviously has the income to buy the house, right? If he can afford to pay the rent and the rent's up here, right, and the cost of ownership's down here, why wouldn't he buy the house? I mean, there's our reasons, and this is why we come up with creative solutions like lease options, rent to own. But I mean, why would you rent? So we want to recognize in a normal and in a frenzied market, rents are going to be lower than the actual price of ownership. This is key. Okay. So the difference, the difference is relative to the market that you're in. So you can look at your own house. It was Wendy that asked the question. Yes. So Wendy, how much would it cost you to rent your house? That's a great exercise done with students. How much would it cost you to rent your house, and how much does it cost you to own it? And if you rent, ask yourself, well, how much would it cost for me to own it? You do the opposite, and you can see the difference. Don't use something that you don't know. Use your own house, whether you rent or you own. Use your own place, and ask yourself, what's the difference? So say on a couple $100,000 house, $200,000 house, you might save $500 a month. On $1 million house, it's massive. I mean, you get to $1 million house, because think about it. We talk about the 1% rule. The 1% rule says I'm supposed to get 1%. It's just a general rule. I'm supposed to get 1% of the value of the property. 1% of $1 million is $10,000. You think people are paying $10,000 rent in $1 million house? It's not happening. It's not happening. So the further it goes up, the worse the disparity is, the larger the disparity. So let's say that $200,000 house, I'm saving $500. I'm making these numbers up because it really applies to where you are. So I'm saving $500 a month because I don't have to pay taxes. I don't have to pay maintenance. I don't have to pay insurance. I don't have to pay any of these things. And I'm not subject to inflation or market fluctuations. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Okay. So I take that $500 and I invest it in property. I invested in the market. I invested somewhere that's producing, say, an 8% return. Or, if you learn how to play this game, getting double digits, 10% is not a stretch at all. Because if we leverage it, you'll make a lot more. So when you do that over time, what you find is a couple things, and you can find these examples. Actually, I think there's a guy on YouTube that goes through a similar example. I can't remember the video. My brother told me he saw it, because I was telling him recently, he went and bought a house. I said, just rent, do the math. And he said he watched this video and it said, well, you're pretty much the same. You're the same after 25 years. Now, here's the problem. You can speculate you're at the same, but at the end of the day, the person that's renting is not subject to the market conditions of that house. They're not trapped, with the market fluctuations of that property, and Pip, well, actually Pip wouldn't know, but he's had properties in there, and you have properties in Florida now. Yes. Yep. It's a property. Yeah. So there's we have some business partners that actually invest directly in Florida. And if you know that Florida market, maybe some of you out there, in that market, properties were going up 10, 25, 50%, in a span of like 3 years, boom, 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 boom. And they collapsed just as fast. So it's all good when your house values go up. It's all good, but everyone's in shock when it goes down. The guy didn't fix the house. He didn't add an addition. He didn't do anything to his house. His house goes up 20%. They're like, yeah, this is normal. Really? What place on the planet do you do nothing? You add no value and the value goes up. And we're like, yeah, that was a plan. We planned it. And we knew the market was going to go up. Come on. Then why are you freaking out when the market goes down? This doesn't make any sense. So over time, with a little bit of games and strategies that the governments play and the banks play, they try to stabilize that they try to smooth out the line of the ups and downs. Over time, though, you're going to see real estate net move about the same amount as your income moves. Now think about that. Now, if your income is moving up in your region, or in Canada, say, or the US, if your incomes are moving up 1%, how can real estate prices over time go higher than 1%? If you're only making 1% more, how can you afford more? And this is where the government gets in and plays games with interest rates and mortgage amortization. That's how they extend that and make it look like you're making more money, like you have more money, but you don't. You can go to any market around the world, by the way, and you can figure out pretty close to what their appreciation rate is if you know a couple things: taxes, insurance, maintenance, inflation. Add these things together, and income increase year over year, you get your appreciation rate of the property. That's how you get your appreciation rate. You can go to a market, say in a new country, not know their appreciation rate, but you know their taxes, the cost of maintenance, the cost of insurance, and the cost of inflation, and what their income increase per year is. Add those together, and there's your appreciation rate. Right? That's what it is. It's just that, right? You can't escape the laws of money. You can't escape the laws of wealth. Doesn't matter. For short periods of time, we can see bursts like we saw with GameStop, like we saw with AMC. You see these things go up and down, but this is a blip in time. We're talking about real wealth takes real time. If you're talking about building wealth over time, just do the math. So when you buy a house versus rent it, just do the math. Look at your own house. If you don't have a compound calculator, you can download them. They're free. You can do them online, or even an app will let you do a compound return, to give you a compound interest, really compound. Appreciation is compound. That's compound return. That's compound. That's exactly what appreciation is. So when we say it went up 6%, we mean that year it went up 6% year over year of the previous value. So when you use appreciation, that's a compounding return year over year over year over year. That's why we can use the rule of 72. The rule of 72 only applies to compound. It doesn't, not just interest, or increase. It's got to be compound. Yeah, Pep?
Well, Core just said, Sam, you make it look like it makes sense, but is but it is also confusing.
It can be, and I'll tell you where my confusion came in as I, understood this. This was so against what I learned growing up. It's so against what I thought I was experiencing. What I thought, but I had learned or been told so many things about money, and most of them negative and anxiety about money, that when I viewed the world and I saw the relationship of money and people, I had these glasses on that were given to me by, people that were teaching me about money. So I already had a bias. It looked. So when these things, as I studied the history of money, as I studied wealth and the creation of wealth, and recognize these laws, and I don't want to say discovered, because you don't discover the law of aerodynamics. I mean, you recognize them. Really, let's be honest. They existed before you, pal. They'll be there after. You didn't invent these things. I guess you could discover them once, but you recognize them. I guess you recognize you can only discover the United States once, right? You can't discover. You can't keep doing it. So I say recognize because it's a more accurate picture. So I think what you want to do, Corey, is you want to take a single situation and just play it out and say, does this law apply? Does this law apply? So when we go back to the example of renting a house versus owning a house, just take a house. Just take a house. Does anybody want? I'll do it for you right now if you want. The numbers get big. So let me give you an example. No one has to give me the actual numbers of their house, but I'll give you an example of a property. So if a property was $100,000, and in Canada it's actually less, but 6%. And I compound that. Give me 1 second. That's not enough zeros. I compound that. It's 417,000 over 24 years. Okay. So imagine your parents bought a house and they lived in it 50 years. You ready? So $100,000 house over 50 years is now worth $1,964,000. You're like, whoa, what do you mean you don't make money in real estate? Well, hold on. What they have to pay every year since they own it, taxes. What they have to do to the house, maintain it. Every house is distressed. You live in it. You're using it. You're walking up and down the stairs, using the water, the taps, the furnace, the air conditioner. The outside gets old from the weather. At least where I live, it does. Right? These things cost money. Your roof gets old. The roof doesn't last 50 years. It's got to be changed. These things got to be changed. So maintenance is going to whack out 1% of that. And then that's every year on average. So in 100 years, and I hope one day that won't be a fiction that will live that, that'll be normal. 100 years you paid for the value of your house just in taxes, just in maintenance by themselves, individually. How are you going to catch up to that? So although $2 million looks like a huge number, my parents bought a house, 100,000, now it's worth $2 million. 6%. That's all it was. 6% compounded. They're not so far ahead. I'll tell you the one advantage of home ownership. One of the bright spots of home ownership creates a forced savings plan. That's what it is. It's forced savings because you got to pay down the mortgage. It's a way that people use to save money. And then when they retire, this is what's the funny thing. When they retire, what do? They sell it and they rent. They sell it and they rent. How is renting okay when you're 55, but stupid when you're 25? Explain that to me. How does that make sense? This doesn't make sense. So just do your own house. Do the math on it. And that'll help you, I believe. It'll help you understand the fiction of property. One of the worst fallacies or myths placed on the working class and the middle class is that you should own things. That net worth is something that you should pursue. It's a tragedy because it creates much hardship financially for people. and they end up living to work. And when you run out of time, at Pip, forever I will be grateful, as my mentor taught me over a decade ago. Time is everything. When you got no time left, it's game over. It's game over. You don't get to go back. I'm not saying money's not important. It's important, but it's not more important than time. So we need to, and this is it, we got to put things in the right order. We want money, not for the sake of money. We want money because it allows us to control time and the quality of our time. That's why we want money, not just to have money. That's not enough. We want money because it does this thing. It helps us control the quality and the extent of time. And things like this exist, and they suck, but they're real. People who have more money, guess what? They live longer. Now, some studies show, 5 to 7 years longer because they're wealthy. Why? Well, because when they're sick, they don't hesitate. They go to the doctor. Right? They don't worry about what it's going to cost, because cost is not a problem for them. They have control of their wealth. So they can go see a doctor and deal with sicknesses immediately. Because every time you get sick and you let it go, it wears your body down. This is not good. So they do preventative stuff. They eat healthier. It's expensive to eat healthy. So people who don't have as much are not eating the best diet. And of course, this is going to create a strain on them. And having money, and we say this, money won't solve every problem. That's ridiculous. But I'd rather have the problems of a rich man than a poor man. See, the stress that's created related to money, emotionally, mentally, will age you. You know this, will age you and wear on you, the stress levels, right? So all these things extend the life or reduce the life. That's the relationship to money. What are we saying really? Reduce the life, reduce how much time you have and the quality of time. So it's like a friend of mine used to say, smoking is bad for you. And I'd say to him, well, I know people that smoke that live 80 years, 80, 90 years. Yeah. But what was the quality of that life? And how much could he have lived or she lived if she didn't smoke? This is the same thing. So we want to know and understand these principles, these laws, so we can apply them. So Corey, I would say to you, try to apply specific situations so you get a better feeling and understanding of it. I'll throw this one at you, Corey. I love that you love to learn, Corey. And we've been teaching together for a little while, right? And I love that you really want to understand this stuff. So I'm going to throw something at you, and I hope this hits a couple of you, but maybe not for everybody. That's okay. Gold is a fiat currency. I want you to think about that. Gold is a fiat currency. A friend of mine, I was with him in Chattanooga, actually. I believe it was Chattanooga. And he was a big believer in gold. And we were just talking. And I said, gold is a fiat currency. And he said his mind exploded. This is a guy who believed in gold the whole time. And he just put it together. We had talked several times, but for some reason it clicked that time. I guess, Pip, like when you told me time is everything, I never really understood it until the 100,000th time that I said it, right? It takes time. But immediately he had a mental shift, a mindset shift, and it shifted the way he saw and recognized the value of things. Gold is a fiat currency. There's no value in gold other than the one we invented. It's not real value. Someone has to tell you gold is worth something, or else you don't know. You don't know. It was the Mayans or Aztecs, I believe. I think it was the Mayans. So the Mayans, this is when the Spanish were just exploring. So they come there and they see the Mayans. I believe it was the Mayans. They see the Mayans and they say to the Mayans, wow, look at all your gold and silver. Now the Mayans, they recognized gold and silver as something, but only for jewelry, really. What they measured in wealth was labor, right? The ability to create, to build. So they couldn't understand why the Spaniards were so interested in gold and silver. What was the big deal, right? And you got to remember, Spain's economy was silver at the time. which is silver was their main, that was their linked economy, their linked currency was silver. So what do? They kidnap the head chieftain and they hold him for ransom. They say, the guy says, basically the chieftain says, what do you want? He says, I believe it was two rooms full of the room that he was held in of gold and one of silver of this room. So sure enough, the people went and got it for them and gave it to him because they wanted their chieftain back. And like the explorers of the day, they killed him anyways. So they took the money. They took it back to Spain. They enslaved the people to mine a mountain full of silver. That was basically silver. It was the name was in the native language was actually Mountain of Silver, something like this. It was, the whole thing was silver, and they mined it. They forced these people to mine it. I think it was 2 years they had to mine it, and they decimated the civilization. Anyways, here's the funny thing. So what do? The Spanish take the silver back home. They got tons of silver. You think, wow, Spain's going to be rich. Spain, inflation exploded in Spain because they had, you ready? Too much silver. They had too much silver. There's too much silver in circulation. They actually created, or were a big part of, the inflation of Europe of the day. They actually defaulted. This is a silver metal economy. They defaulted partially or fully over 10 times in their country. This is a silver economy. This idea, if we go back to gold, we'll be okay. This is nonsense. Nonsense. You don't think it's been tried? Nonsense. You can't use gold. You can't use gold. Try to fix it. It didn't work. The Brentwood Act didn't work. It didn't work. Why are we here? Why is the United States the currency of the world, the peg currency of the world? There's reasons for this stuff. This stuff didn't happen by accident. Everybody thinks it was the bank. The banks wanted it being. The banks wanted gold to stay. They wanted gold to stay. They didn't want paper currency. They didn't believe in it until they did. And when they did, you go to a bank and say, let's go back to gold. They'll say, you're nuts. You're crazy, right? Because they know how to make money with what they're dealing with. You gotta know the history. If you really want to understand it, I'm telling you, look at the history. It's littered. It's littered with these examples. This idea of money and gold and silver, it's a fiction. It's a fiction. There's no real wealth behind these things. Money, without question, fiat paper currency, without question, is the best type of currency. There's no way anything even comes close. Gold, silver, these things never can compete with currency, paper currency. But it has to be managed properly. Whether it's gold or silver, like the Spanish, they didn't manage it properly and there was a collapse. Money's the same way. Like in South America, unfortunately, has been plagued with governments producing too much currency and collapsing their economy. Huge mistrust with their governments because of that. So collapsing of currencies can happen. It's more to do with who's managing. But if we're talking about, workability, manageability, flow of a currency, there's nothing better than paper money. And as you've heard Pip say it, I've said it too, there's nothing back in the US dollar, there's nothing back in the Canadian dollar, there's nothing back in the yen, the pound. These are floating currencies. There's nothing back in these currencies. And without question, it's a better system than gold or silver or bartering. There's people that want to go back to bartering. Are you kidding me? Bartering? Really? So you go up to a guy and you say, I want a suit. He says, it costs you 3 cows. So you give him 3 cows, he gives you a suit. Next month you come back, you go, you know what? My daughter's getting married. I want another suit. Here's my 3 cows. He says, I don't need any cows anymore. But what I really like is some pigs. Can you give me some pigs? So this guy has to go with his cows and get pigs. Except for some reason at the time, the trade for cows and pigs is not very good. So he can't use the amount of pigs that he needs because the tailor says to him, I need 10 pigs. I used to get 10 pigs for 3 cows, but you can't anymore. You need 5 pigs for 10 cows. So now the guy has to get 5 cows, trade with the guy to get 10 pigs so he can buy the suit. So guess what this is called? Inflation. It's inflation. Bartering system created the worst kind of inflation. It was terrible. So in a complex economy, it doesn't work. These things you hear people talk about, we don't get them. It sounds good. You hear about bartering, it sounds good, but it doesn't work in a complex economy. You can't you build cities around bartering. Forget it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Build systems around gold and silver. This stuff doesn't work. There's a reason we're using paper currency. There's a reason. This stuff's been tried before, Often my son will say something, will say, Dad, did you know? As though the information just sprung up into the world. He'll say, did you know this? It's like something that, when you get older, stuff, right? You learned this stuff decades ago, but you got to remember for him, my son, this is the first time he's been exposed to it. So it's amazing and it's new. And he thinks it's new, right? New, like the sun only rises when I wake up new. Because when I'm sleeping, the sun just stays down. Why? I mean, why would it be out? I'm not up. This is the mentality you have as a child. You can't use this mentality applying it to your finances. You can't think like a child would think about money. This will create serious hardship, So you want to absolutely push yourself to educate yourself about money. Otherwise, denounce all material things, give away your money to charity, go live on a mountain. It's cool too, man. That's all right. But if you're going to live amongst the rest of us, you're going to have to learn how to play this game. How are we doing, Pep?
Well, you're already over on time, but that's nothing out of unusual. I think I've said 5 words tonight. Just what's cool though, Sam, we've got many people I haven't seen for a while on here. We've got people from New Zealand, Australia, nice. Europe. This is cool. And then obviously Canada and the US.
Yes.
And somebody just asked, but who's cooler, Pip or Sam? Neither one of us, actually. The only reason we exist is because of our wives. They are way cooler than we'll ever be. And I'm still not sure how either one of us got our
yes.
They're the ones that have issues. We just got lucky. So, with that being said, we do have to. We're almost at an hour right now. We will keep going through this stuff. And guys, Wendy, great question about putting your house. The question about the house, and the one thing I do want to say on that, you can over short periods of time get great returns on your house. You can get great returns on gold over short periods of time. GameStop, and some of these things are shorter than others. Some of them have a longer time frame. I like to look at it as a casino. A casino's odds of winning are minuscule compared to their odds of losing. But over time, they always win. Even if it's 50.5 to 49.5, they're going to win. Now, obviously, they take into account alcohol and other things like that and emotions.
Sure.
But when it's all done, they have a very slim chance of winning with odds. And they've done all the math ahead of time, just like the insurance companies. You don't see too many insurance companies that have small, dilapidated, ugly buildings. You don't see many insurance companies that haven't been around for 100+ years. And so there's a reason, because they've already done the math. Just like Sam talks about the rules of money or the laws of money, math has its own laws too.
Yes.
And you can't argue with them. You're not going to argue with those laws of math. They're going to win all day long. For short periods of time, can you win the casino? Amen. For short periods of time, can you win on gold or GameStop? Of course you can. But what Sam is trying to say is look at any property. Let me rephrase that. Look at 99% of properties over that 20 to 30 year time frame, and what he's saying is going to hold true. Look at it in any 5 or 10 year time frame, it could really change. So we're talking about things over time.
Yeah. And we should recognize finance over time. Pip's bringing up an excellent point. And that example of a casino is wonderful because it really shows somebody can walk into a casino and be a big winner. But over time, the casino is going to win, and their percentage, like Pip said, it's razor thin. They're only maybe 2-3 points better than you are on the side of winning percentage wise. But over time, and this is what they know, if we just keep them playing, we'll make money. And this is why casinos pay for themselves inside a year. That's why they, you have these massive casinos built billions of dollars, and they have no problem putting up the capital because it's a winning system. Now, Can a casino go bankrupt? If they have a perfect winning system, if the math's right, can it go bankrupt? Absolutely it can. Why? Because even a good system mismanaged will collapse. So it's not just knowing the system, it's applying the system and letting the system keep you disciplined. And we often say this too. We'll say the system protects you from you, right? You got to objectify money and finance. You got to objectify it, not personalize it, objectify it. You know, we don't get excited, and not to say you shouldn't, we don't get excited about real estate. We get excited about the money that it makes, and more specifically, what we can do with that money. That's what gets us excited. The house itself is not exciting to us at all. Really,
the reason you should get excited about real estate is everybody needs it.
That's true.
It's a commodity that everybody needs, whether you're a renter, an owner, an investor. Everybody needs it. That's why I like it. Not everybody needs to have GameStop. Not everybody needs to have other things, but it's food, water, shelter. It's one of those three. I mean, like I said, we could put air in there, maybe make it 4, but nonetheless, that's one of the things that we need in life. So next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel. We're going to keep talking about the rules or laws of money.
Yes.
I can only ask you guys a couple things on the housekeeping thing. Please, my wife told me I need to change this a little bit. You can obviously share this video with other people, but she also told me, please go to the YouTube channel, just Pip Stellick YouTube channel, and we'll always have every week's show on there as well. So you can watch it on there. So go to the YouTube channel. What's also cool, you can watch all the past episodes. Somebody's asking questions about, there was a riddle.
Oh, didn't we answer the riddle?
You did not answer the riddle. You got to do that. Because somebody called me on and I didn't know what they were talking about. So what was the riddle last week?
Okay, so we had the riddle was you come up to you're going down a road and it splits into a fork, and there you don't know which way to go, right? And for the sake of simplicity, we're gonna say you're trying to get to heaven. You're on the road to heaven and it splits and you're like, which way do I go? And just luckily, there's 2 guys sit on stools whose sides over their head, and one side says I only tell the truth, one side says I only tell a lie, I can only lie. So what question, you can only ask them one question, it has to be the same question. You have to ask them the same question to figure out which road to go down to find heaven. So did anybody come up with the answer? I'm curious. Anybody punch in an answer? What's the question?
I haven't seen it yet. They're just asking about the riddle from last time at this point, but we're a little bit behind.
Okay. Right.
On the Facebook feed. So if they answered, it's still going to be 20 seconds.
So here we go. The answer is, which would the other go? Which way would the other go? Which way would the other go? So the liar is going to say that the guy, so let's pretend, this is where it gets complicated. So this is hell and this is heaven. We don't know this yet, okay? And the guy sitting here always lies, and this guy always tells the truth, and that's all you know, okay? So if I ask the liar which way would the other go, what's he say? He's gonna say the good guy is gonna go down this way because this is the path to hell. Everybody see this? This is the path to hell. Now here's the funny part. Ready? You ask the one that tells the truth which way would the other go. Guess what he says? He says he'd go down here because he's the bad one, right? He's going down to hell, right? So you go the other way. They both point this way, and you say, see ya. And you go this way, and hey, you're in heaven. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So even though they actually both pointed this way, that tells you to go the opposite way. I love that riddle. I love it.
I'm glad you love it, and you laugh more than anybody when you tell it. That's always good. So 8 o'clock Eastern time next week, same time on Wednesday of next week. I believe we'll do Wednesday of next week. Like I said, share the video if you would. Please let other people know about it. Invite other people, even if they have an opposing opinion. We'll see a lot of you guys on our lease option class this weekend. If you want more information about that, please just send me a private message. We have a 3-day lease option class coming up over the weekend. So We'll see you guys then if you're on that. If not, we will see you guys next Wednesday. Something you want to say, Sam?
One last thing. Please try this. Please try this. Count your money once this month. Just count it once. Count it once and see how you feel. I promise you. I promise you. Count your money once a month and you won't count it the rest of the month. You believe me. Give it a try.
Thanks, guys. Turn to somebody you know, somebody you don't know, and say you're going to be all right. Talk to you guys soon.
You're going to be all right.
You're going to be all right.